everybody, and welcome! It has been 2 years since Kerbal Space Program 2 was announced, and I have a lot to talk about that, so there are going to be 2 videos this time. This one that focuses more on features and their impact on gameplay, and then there will be another which will be more of a deep dive into the creation process and the goals behind the game. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss that when it comes out. Maybe I'll do 3 videos when we cross the 3-year mark since the announcement next year. Anyway, I have done a few feature videos in the past, those are linked in the description. But since it's been a few months that we took a look at how the development goes, let's dive right into it and talk about 9 new things in Kerbal Space Program 2. First up, plenty of planets. In addition to the already existing planets and moons in the Kerbal's own solar system in the original game, and a potential new planet hinted at in a video, there are going to be a lot of new planets in KSP2, since of course interstellar travel will open up huge possibilities. We know about the twin planets Rask and Rusk. We know about Ovis with its large rings, we know about the eyeball planet Puff, and we most recently got to know Gurdama, a relatively young planet with high volcanic activity, craters filled with liquid, a ring, and in future a thick atmosphere and moon inside its ring, according to a forum post by the developers. Whether or not it is named Gurdama because that's the sound you'll make when you fail to land on it remains to be seen. Gurdama! But it's safe to say that we are going to see plenty of planets in Kerbal Space Program 2. What the details for Gurdama have shown us leads me to my next item. Graphics goodness! See that? Those are waves with reflections. If you have played the original KSP, a water effect like this was only possible by installing the mod Scatterer. Otherwise, water looks rather dull in the now 10-year-old game. But water is not the only thing that is going to be a lot prettier than we are used to so far. We will get volumetric clouds. We will get better reflections off of metallic surfaces. Terrains will be a lot prettier overall. And there will be indirect lighting similar to what the mod Planetshine enabled for the original game. So how to go about and experience all that graphics goodness? How are we going to fly around to all of these planets and moons? Orbital Construction. One of the most recent show and tell videos shows off orbital launch clamps. We already know that orbital construction is going to be extremely important because vehicles will be limited in size within the vehicle assembly building, or VAB for short, but that is going to be a lot bigger than the VAB in the original game. These clamps here are going to be vital to have your ship stick to the construction yard before releasing it into deep space. What we do not know yet are the requirements for having such an orbital facility. If there are limits on how many you can have or how large they can be. We do know that gigantic ships such as the one shown in the trailer will only be possible by building them directly in space, which is in part due to the size of the engines. Speaking of engines, new rocket engines. Meet Lancer, the liquid oxygen augmented nuclear thermal rocket, informally known as the Super Nerve. It is a 2.5 meter wide part, look at the Kerbal for size comparison, that will feature an extendable engine bell to switch between atmospheric and vacuum flight, as well as a sort of afterburner to increase its thrust output. It is just the next in a growing number of new engines that will be present in Kerbal Space Program 2. Some of them will use rather exotic fuels like metallic hydrogen. The Lancer was specified as using just regular old liquid hydrogen as its main fuel, which hints at our next item. New fuel types. The original KSP featured just fuel and oxidizer for most engines, with just 2 exceptions, the monopropellant engine and the ion engine. But if you ever played the Realism Overhaul mod suite, you know that there is a plethora of potential fuel and oxidizer combinations out there in the real world, depending on which engine you want to use. I wonder how deep KSP2 is going to dive into this. One of the appeals of the current game is that you don't have to wonder whether or not your fuel tank will support your engine or not. Just slap the things together and fly away. And crash many times, of course. There are indicators that the sequel will require more detailed planning in this department, not only through statements from the developers, but also due to the fact that there will be different types of fuel production facilities for colonies, as shown here. To produce fuel, you need resources, which leads me to the next point on my list. New resources. In one of the earlier videos featuring the new editor interface, we could catch a glimpse of material requirements for certain parts. The developers also have hinted at that some colonies might be better at producing certain materials than others. Yes, there will be colony buildings, more on that later, and we got some pictures of a deep resource scanner. In the original, the only resource you could gather from other planets or moons was a general ore that could be refined into fuel. From what we have seen, it is safe to assume that this will be a bit more complex than what we are used to from the original Kerbal Space Program. Seems like there are certain materials we will only be able to find when using the aforementioned Deep Resource Scanner. So choose wisely where you want to build your colony. Speaking of which, there was some colony-specific detail in the most recent show and tell video. The roads to space. In order for your rocket or spaceplane to take off or land safely, you're going to need a flat surface. To enable this, you can construct runways and landing pads out of panels to place on a planet's surface. When I first heard about this idea back in October 2019, I got a bit carried away.
There's so many strange things you can build now. Okay. You know, bridges across canyons, cantilevers off the edge of a crater. There's so many crazy things you can do now.
Trackmania KSP is coming?
I mean, right? Like, yes. Dude, will you build that?
I'll try.
Okay.
I'll try.
That's a deal.
Guess that's a promise I have to deliver on. Well, can't do that if the game isn't released, can I? Although these parts were talked about and shown in concept renders and some scenes showing off a colony on Duna, we now finally appear to have the actual parts shown. So maybe I can already start laying out a track or something. Anyway, before that, let's talk about another aspect of colonies. Power generation. The first Kerbal Space Program offers 3 types of electricity generation: solar panels, fuel cells, and radioisotope thermoelectric generators, or RTG for short. Whether or not there will be more options for spacecraft remains to be seen, but we definitely know that there will be new ways of generating power for colonies. There will be wind turbines, solar panels, geothermal plants, and potentially some nuclear and fusion reactors. Probably depending on what your colony needs to produce, you will also have to select a beefier power supply. Like so many other things in Kerbal Space Program 2, many details surrounding this are still unknown. It's starting to become a rather big list. Speaking of big, size matters. Did you notice that KSP2 shapes up to be a lot bigger than the original? I'm talking in every sense of the word here. Not only bigger in its ambition or the size of the universe you can explore, but also the size of buildings, ships, and general stuff. It's going to be massive, an absolute unit. People that know my work in KSP won't peg me for someone that has a problem with that, of course. But I do enjoy creating small spacecraft all the same, and hope that the game will still offer plenty of opportunities to utilize such little vehicles. But no matter from which perspective you look at it, Kerbal Space Program 2 is going to be on a completely different scale compared to the original. But all of the additional features and new things to explore increase the complexity of the project. And with increasing complexity in any project, there is always the danger that the people involved lose sight of the real goal they want to achieve. This is something I will focus more on in the next part of my 2 years later miniseries about KSP2. It will release a few days after this, and I will then link it in the description. I hope you tune in again when it comes out. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel for more and follow me on my social thingies. The links are in the description. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.